Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about Food Agility CRC, a newly founded CRC, and then talk about a specific project which we're trying to pursue, which has come across every single dilemma and problem and issue that's been raised by every speaker so far. So it's going to be a little bit more tricky than we thought, but it is going to be incredibly valuable, and we hope puts value back into the data for our farmers. Mea culpa, I stole this picture from CSBP, so I moved our logo up to the top right-hand corner to hide the CSBP logo. They're one of our trusted members. And speaking of trust, I was reminded earlier today of a quote which I heard, which was, relationships are built and destroyed at the speed of trust, which is so key that we have trust in providing our relationships. So can I have a show of hands for who knows what a cooperative research centre is? Smattering? Good smattering. But every CRC is different, and this one is trying to be different again. And that's reflected in the name with the use of the word agility. It's trying to be much more responsive. It's determinedly customer focused and is prepared to try and do the fail fast kind of agile methodology of research. Which is particularly appropriate, I think, for some more horticultural applications, but it's a bit more tricky when you're dealing with an annual crop cycle. It's a bit harder to be fleet of foot. We are, however, the same basis as any other CRC. We are reasonably well funded. We have 50 mil of Commonwealth cash, 35 mil so far and counting of participant cash. We have over 50 participants. We are tackling, I guess, any problem within the food and agriculture space which relies on and is going to be solved by assisting the flow of data to and from, up and down, along and around the value chain of the given commodity that we might be looking at. Again, a differentiator, this CRC has no interest in owning IP. It wants IP generated to be owned by presumably the commercial entity involved in a given project, because that's how it's going to get moved into market quicker and better. And the Food Agility CRC doesn't want to hamper in any way or to try and compete with its own partnerships by trying to establish a war chest to try and live on beyond its term of 10 years. 10 years comes, we fold up, we move on. If we haven't done our job by then should be able to say somebody else should be doing it for us. The genesis of Food Agility CRC, which I came across about a year ago, a bit more now actually, and helped drive from Curtin University's point of view, was the Australian Farm Institute report, which, as you can read there, I won't read it out, pointed the finger at Australian ag. We all know the stats around the forecast kilojoule growth, so we can't just talk yield, we can't just talk tonnage, we have to talk calories, we have to talk protein. And the ultimate premise in a world where everything is digitally connected, data is a critical asset, food is no different, and yet agriculture, if we're to believe Mr. McKinsey, and we did, and so did the interview panel, we have the lowest digital adoption of all industries. And this has been referred to by a couple of speakers. This is actual from the McKinsey report. And McKinsey has a little backroom in America where they look at 28 different factors across industry sectors, including workforce skills, IT purchasing, and so on and so forth. And don't worry too much about the detail, but they consolidate it into several green light indicators, which is the columns across. And the far left column is sectors. At the top, as you'd expect, for a digital preparation industry sector is information and communications technologies. So there are green lights all the way through. And down the bottom, you can argue with kind of whether it should be bottom or a little bit up, or whether you believe the row of reds, but that's agriculture and hunting, because it's American. So this is a tremendous base from us. See this as an opportunity, glass half full and all that sort of stuff. But it's a really telling thing, and Chris pointed it out very effectively during his talk. That helped us structure the, I guess, if we have one slide which is trying to describe what the Food Agility CRC is trying to do, it's to marry market and supply and look at the value chain and what flows of information can occur that are not occurring at the moment across that value chain. This is all sounding a bit sort of highbrow and high level because it is, but nonetheless the attitude is to try and work with data and increasing data flows, just as Leanne was talking about the American kind of trying to get away from the silo-driven approach, which can be a commercial advantage for some silo owners, but not one suspects forever. And so the four kind of drivers: produce the right thing, obviously understanding your market, therefore producing the right foods, leveraging Brand Australia, access to finance, farm profitability and understanding of farm profitability is seen as key. And I apologise for the fact that the idiot graphic is a casino chip. It's not meant to be how we're proposing to access finance. What we're particularly interested in is within on-farm experimentation, which is the West Australian, I guess, flagship project that we're trying to get up, is to work on the future workforce. And that's not just new kids coming through the school and tertiary system. It's also enhancing the capabilities of agronomists, of consultants, of fertiliser input suppliers, of farmers themselves. Every project within the CRC is to be couched within a framework which looks at the whole ecosystem. So if we have a value chain in place for wheat, then we consider not just the grower, the seed, the input, the fertilisers, the bulk handlers and so on, but we also think about what information does the bank have to offer and take out, what regulation aspects should we be considering. It's an attempt to have a clear line of sight from our research through to the marketplace application. If we are true to that observation and get customer input, and there's many customers along the given value chain, we have the best chance, we believe, of having a successful project, or at least one which, when it starts to go off, we can kill it quickly. The 50-odd partners includes these magnificent logos here, and GRDC are not actually partners in a formal sense, but they hopefully will be funding. And the far right logo is the one of the last gestures of Colin Barnett was to assign 200k per annum for the life of this CRC, which we're delighted that the current government has honoured. That's being steered through DPIRD, and Curtin University and DPIRD were really, I guess, the two mainstays of building the node here in Western Australia. And there are some other logos there. I won't run through them, but happy to talk to each of them in due course. Can I just turn to something which Simon Cook's really elucidated for me? And these are his slides, so I have to use them in a sense, and I'll try and do them justice. Because there's been a tsunami of technologies and data providing instruments and sensors and whatnot from the Pawsey Supercomputing Centre here. Various people talking about genomics and metabolomics. I learnt that Health Mob are now talking about integrative omics, which I can only guess what that is. There's Internet of Everything, there's visualization, there's VR, kind of augmented realities, there's social media, as Leanne mentioned. Remote sensing is still there, hanging in, Planet and so forth. A tsunami of data. But how do we get value out of the data? And I think that's the problem that we're touching on individually across this morning's speakers. And to get the value, it's really, we have to look aside from collecting more and more data and big data and so on. It's really about improving efficiencies of our production. It's on the y-axis, and improving the value that we can derive out of niche products and premium products. And if we concentrate on knowledge growth rather than straight yield growth, then we have a resource which is exportable in its own right, and it's essentially inexhaustible. If we increase in our knowledge, we can advance above merely mining our resource, be it exporting. Woo. Now here's a couple of, this is FAO data, and it's pretty interesting. On the far right, you've got Vietnam and Pakistan, which are fairly constant area harvested, but the yield has, over 50 years, displayed a vertical characteristic. That's Brazil in the middle, the green triangles. The red blobs, China. And you've got Burkina Faso. Hands up, who knows where that is? Good man. Chris, do you really? West Africa, yeah. And Niger are the two bottom dwellers, or benthic dwellers. This is data from a bit closer to home, and it's just for wheat, 61 through 13. Again, FAO data. Western Europe are the stellar ones here. North America, bobbling around. South Asia, and Australia. Kind of sobering reading, but again, we can build on this. The on-farm experimentation work, which Simon is pioneering, is an attitude which says we've done agronomy for a long while, and traditional agronomy is X meters in the corner of the paddock. But what Simon wants to do is to lead an experiment across the entire farm, or at least across the entire paddock. And so collecting that data, which we now can do and actually manage and manipulate in a sensible way with the compute power that we have and with the algorithms that we're hoping to develop. So it begins with, in this first instance, CSBP, who are going to collect data in some shape or form, legally or illegally. This is not being recorded, is it? And we're actually having a proof of concept trial at the moment, and I'd like to invite Cara, Andrew, and Lynn to really quickly stand up because I've only got 2:22 left. From Hitachi, and Cara's from the Curtin Computation Institute, and looking at building a structure that can ingest really messy data, extract, transform, load into a form where someone like Fiona, who will be known to everyone in the room, who's the early mid-career research fellow with Simon as Premier's Fellow, and has sort of been with the team for a couple of months now. And also Myrtille Lacoste, who's actually not even employed with us yet, but next week will be, who's going to be looking at, Myrtille, if I may, is a quantitative social scientist, and so we'll be applying her techniques and research into decision making on farm. And Fiona has the mathematical, statistical sort of background to develop algorithms that we can hopefully provide value back to the farmer through analysis of his or her input data and harvest data. 1 minute 20. I'm going to really quickly flick through. Traditionally, I think we've done agricultural science, which we've turned into decisions. And that made sense when we didn't really have an awful lot of data to hand. It's kind of logical, but in these days where we've got so much data, there's opportunities now to try and concentrate on the bit in the middle of the Venn where there's real innovation and value can be generated. So we move from either trying to make decisions from a database on ground or from an agronomy base on ground to a point where these arrows start to relate to each other, and you're getting a mix of the sheer volume of data, the agronomy kind of intelligence, and applying it to the best decisions possible. So the outcomes of on-farm experimentation is, we hope, will be a legal platform within some sort of structure, and our big challenge is what's the business model that's going to maintain and support that structure, not for the individual farm, but for the wider area, the region. And indeed to scale it up from region to statewide to nationwide perhaps. So how big can we go? And importantly, to enable individual growers to get value from their data. The missing link. I'll be really quick because we believe that if in the hands of the farmer, it's graphics like these which can really empower decision making and lead us to a point where we're reaching some of the yield benefits that we looked at in the FAO charts earlier. So I guess I always like to end on a question or two, and I've got even more questions following this morning's speakers. But I would like to say that please identify with Mirti and Fiona and Cara, Andrew, Lynn, and have a chat about the detail of it, because I've really skimmed over the top. And if you want to follow up with any further information, our emails are all there. Thank you.
Thank you.